Hey everybody, what's up? From a Blanket Fort recording studio in a one-bedroom apartment in North Hollywood, it's People Pleaser. I'm Austin Archer, and we're doing it again. We're doing it again, if you can even believe it. We're back here with another episode where it's just me, no guests today. Got some stuff on my mind grapes that I want to talk about. Shout out 30 Rock. I've been rewatching 30 Rock lately. Maybe the greatest sitcom of all time. Certainly one of the greatest of my lifetime. I started the show in like episode one. Episode one. That's a show where like they were doing 30 Rock from the first episode. Sometimes you'll watch a sitcom and you'll be like, oh, it took them like a full season to figure out what show they were making, or maybe like 5 or 6 episodes before they were like, I know what we're doing. But episode one of 30 Rock, Jane Krakowski has a line. Jack Donaghy, played by Alec Baldwin, of course, comes in and goes, people are saying things about Jenna's weird eye. And then Jane Krakowski says, which one? Is it this one? It's only weird because when I was a kid, my sister peed in it. And that's a vintage 30 Rock line. That's in episode one. Episode one. Love that show. Mind grapes. I got things on my mind grapes. We got stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about we're going to go through a pros and cons list on the show today of self-reflection. Self-reflection is one of these things that's like obviously a good thing that people should be able to do. A lot of people can't. A lot of people have a really, really hard time with self-reflection, but we're actually going to look at like, when does self-reflection, there are pros and cons. And we're going to look at like, what could some of the drawbacks be to being a very self-reflective person, and sort of the concept of mirrors and using other people as mirrors, using art as mirrors. A lot of interesting stuff to discuss. Before we do, we're going to bring back I love you, but that noise hurts. Okay, we got to fix the TikTok stream. We'll put the TikTok people right here. That'll fix it for them. Boom. That takes them away from the thing. But sorry, everybody. TikTok was resting on the laptop, and the laptop fan was blasting into the phone and blowing up everyone's ear holes. So sorry about that. We fixed it. Before we get into the main meat of the show, we're going to resurrect an old segment on this show, the Bad Take Brigade. The Bad Take Brigade is back. I never did make a sound drop for this. I made a sound drop for Review the Review. I said for a very long time that I was going to create a sound drop that went, get down, the Bad Take Brigade. And I never made it. Couldn't be easier. It would take me literally 30 minutes. Won't do it. Don't know if I'm ever going to do it. But this is the Bad Take Brigade. This is usually a segment where I go around the internet and I figure out bad takes that people have had from the last week. Usually it's like some conservative talking head or politician. But this week, my Bad Take Brigade is every person in my comments who told me when I was talking about the TikTok ban back when Congress passed, they passed the resolution to ban TikTok with an 82% majority. Every single person who told me, come on, you're freaking out. It's not going to pass the Senate. I can't tell you how many people commented that and how many people I saw in different comment sections across the internet going, it won't pass the Senate. At the time, I literally said this. I was like, why do you think that? And that's still what I say today, as we now know that it has passed the Senate. I don't know why everyone was so confident. It didn't it seemed like everyone knew something I didn't know, that they were like, things pass through Congress with an 82% majority all the time. They have a really hard time getting through Congress. I just was like, do you guys know something about this that I don't know? Because from my perspective, I was like, nothing gets through American Congress with 82% approval. Nothing does that. And I couldn't conceive of a reason why it would pass through Congress and not the Senate. Everybody seemed really, really confident, though. Everyone was like, don't worry. There's no way. Even that guy, who's like who made the big apology video. Jeff Jackson, is that who he is? That's the Democrat from somewhere, and he's popular on TikTok. He has like 2.5 million followers on TikTok, and he voted to ban TikTok, and everyone was like, why did you vote to ban TikTok? Your entire political popularity is based on TikTok. And he, in his apology video, was like, I don't know. I guess I thought that like he's like, I still kind of think that I don't think it's going to get through Congress. And so people were like, well, he says it's not going to get through Congress. And I want to talk to that guy and go like, why did you think that? You're in politics. You're a professional politician. Surely you must have known something about this that the rest of us didn't. But apparently, no. Apparently, he was also just being like, I don't think it'll get through the Senate, right? Like, it really seems like everyone was just sort of going, I think we should be good. I don't think it will get through the Senate. And no one had a good reason why they thought that. Everyone was just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this won't pass. It passed through Congress with an 82% majority. And then it flew through the Senate. So it just was like, why did everyone think that this wasn't going to happen? And maybe it's because of all of the attempts to ban it in the first place that all got stalled in the past. But I don't know. So bad take to everyone who thought this was not a big deal and that we didn't need to think about it or worry about it. And also, of course, bad take to everyone in the Senate and in Congress who voted for this. Just like astoundingly terrible. Like, just what an embarrassing use of resources, of political resources in this country. What a humiliating, embarrassing failure of public policy this is. And any person who doesn't understand why it's a problem to allow the government to willy-nilly ban social media platforms because they're just like afraid of what people are saying on them, yeah, I don't know. Welcome to late stage capitalism and the fall of the American empire. It's happening right in front of our eyes. The rise of authoritarianism, the ineptitude of our governmental machine and structure. It is just astounding. We could be doing so much with our resources and with the collected minds of our political body, and you know, relieving medical debt, fixing infrastructure, fixing our crumbling extortion-based healthcare model, making higher education reasonably affordable, fixing the broken housing market so that people can afford homes again. Anything other than banning TikTok. Stop giving weapons to Israel. Stop arming a genocidal army that is committing genocide on the world stage in front of everyone, and not like covertly saying out loud that they're committing genocide and being like, try to stop us. Just anything, any use of our energy and resources would have been better than banning TikTok. What's so crazy about this? The craziest thing about it is the super majorities that voted for this in both in both Congress and the Senate. Like that, you don't see that in the American political body, and you saw that with this, and it's just absurdly on the nose commentary on where their priorities are at. And I don't know if people don't see this as a major problem, as a major failing of governance. Yeah, I think you're wrong about that. But really, I'm going to be scratching my head for a while as to why everyone kept saying, don't worry, it won't pass the Senate. Because that was wrong. That was wrong. And at the time when everyone was saying it, I was like, why do you I don't get why you're so confident about that. I don't know why you think that that's for sure a thing. I was hoping that maybe people knew something that I didn't know, but it turns out, nope. Everyone was just kind of going like, cuz. Okay, let's get to the actual topic of the show today, shall we? I was thinking about this the other day, about mirrors and self-reflection. I have friends in my life. I have people in my life who sometimes, I get really agitated with people, with friends, with, people I'm working with, stuff like that, people I'm collaborating with, whatever. And I talk to my therapist about it. I talk to my sponsor about it. I talk to whoever I trust to like be able to guide me through it about it. And sometimes the question comes up, do you value these relationships? Why do you keep these relationships in your life? Are they causing you more stress, more pain than they're worth? Are you getting value out of these relationships, or are you just sort of keeping them around because you're afraid to part ways with them? Some sort of dependency, some sort of neediness, some sort of attachment issue. Is there something that you value? And I really have to sit down and think about that. And I have to go, well, no, I definitely, it's not like I hate these people. And it's not like I think that they're, particularly bad for me, or I don't know, but I really do have to sit down and go, what is it about the relationship that I'm hanging on to? What is it that I find valuable? And one of the things that came up in the last little while for me is I sort of realized, well, I do like, and I think that this is a good thing mostly. I can acknowledge that a lot of the behaviors in certain people that get under my skin are things that ping in my brain and set off alarms in my brain because they are defects that I also struggle with. So, you know, let's say I'm frustrated with a friend because I feel like they are dominating conversations when we're together and they're not, asking enough questions or being interested enough in what's going on in my life. I know from a lifetime of experience of being a very long-winded person and very verbose person that that's me, that I'm getting a chance to see what my behavior looks like externalized in another person. And that's a gift, right? It's a gift to be able to experience it from the other end. And it's also a gift to be able to recognize it, to be able to recognize, oh, that's me. I do that. Instead of just, being completely unaware, like watching someone do something that you do and going, oh, that's so rude it's so rude that person's always 5 minutes late. That's so rude. And being completely unaware that you have a problem with lateness and punctuality. So I kind of thought of that answer as like, well, it's nice to have a mirror in another person to self-reflect with, to be able to look at and say, you know, uh, uh, this behavior in this other person might get to me, might bother me, but if I turn away from it, in a way, I'm turning away from myself. I'm refusing to look at the things that are potentially problematic in me. I'm seeing these behaviors in another person that rub me the wrong way, or that frequently irritate me or agitate me, get me frustrated, get me overwhelmed, stressed. And if I say, I don't want that energy in my life anymore, and I cut that person off and I tell them I don't want them around anymore, I don't want to collaborate with them anymore, I don't want to be friends anymore, in a way, it's like I'm saying that to myself. It's like I'm turning someone away for doing things that I do. And so I almost want to be able to accept them as a form of radical self-acceptance too, and not look away from them as a method of not looking away from the things that I have to work on. Because it feels like if I turn away from them, then I'm refusing to look at the mirror. I'm refusing to internalize the things that I still need to look at and work on and self-reflect on. And I don't know if that's the most beneficial use of a friendship or a collaboration, is just to be able to see problems in another person that you have in yourself. I don't know if that is like the most healthy dynamic for a relationship. And I also, I think that there's more to these relationships than just that. There's more that I get out of them. I I really like these people. I think that they're talented, funny, kind people. I can see the good qualities as well. But it brings up a lot of questions too about like, at what point do you say, you know what, actually this person has raised their toxicity, has magnified to a level where it is now no longer beneficial for me to stare into it or look at it, and it's also it's now actively harmful to me and my process. And I don't know where that line is exactly. I think there are some clear-cut things that people could point at in certain dynamics where it's like, in a romantic relationship, once physical or emotional abuse, consistent physical emotional abuse enters the chat, it feels like, okay, this may have now exceeded the realm of what is an acceptable, amount of time to stare into a mirror or try to self-reflect by looking into someone else's soul. Because there is a part of me that sort of believes any two people can hypothetically make a relationship work so long as they both are willing to stay committed to the process of continuing to work on it. But there's also a part of me that thinks it's totally reasonable at a certain point to go, I actually think that's enough. I think that's enough. If persistent betrayals of trust, if lying is persistent, if your partner is like stealing money from you, if they're going behind your back, cheating, if there's abuse and deceit and manipulation, I think that a person can say, actually, this is detrimental to my health. The detrimental parts of this heavily outweigh the beneficial parts of this, and I will most likely be better off without this in my life. Even if there are aspects of your abusive partner, friend, whatever, that you also share, even if you can go, yeah, that thing that they do, I know I do that too, but it's magnified to a degree in them that I don't actually think it is in me. And that can happen too. Sometimes you can be using a person as a self-reflective mirror, and you can be doing that, kind of healthy work of like, when they do something that's particularly harmful, toxic, detrimental, you can go, I have empathy for that person because I know I do that too. I know that I have aspects of that in my person as well. I'm not going to just simply sit in judgment of them and be self-righteous and feel like, wow, I would never do anything like that. But I can actually go, I get how that happened because I have some of that too. But sometimes these things can be magnified to a degree where you go, I have elements of that, but not to that level. That they have taken it to a level where I don't believe I am at. And I don't know, in that instance, does it become okay to step away from the mirror that you're staring into and walk away and say, I think I've looked into that one for long enough? I hope that makes sense, what I'm saying. I hope that concept makes sense of trying to figure out when it is beneficial, healthy, responsible to stare into the mirror and not look away from it, and when it becomes more responsible or beneficial to say, I actually think I need to step away from this. I decided, as I teased earlier, to make a list of pros and cons about self-reflection and about kind of staring into mirrors. We'll start with the pros. I just got a list here. Okay. So my first thing I wrote is that self-reflection is a gift. And I really do believe that the ability to be able to see oneself in an honest way is essential for personal growth, I believe. Being able to recognize your defects and see how they look when externalized in another person's behavior is massive. Not everyone is actually capable of that, spiritually, psychologically. So if you have that ability to be self-reflective, to recognize elements of yourself in another person's bad behavior, or to look out in the world and see violence and harm being done and be able to see those things in yourself, that's the only way that you're ever going to be able to address those things. If you can't see that, if you're not capable of seeing the areas that you need to work on and being able to recognize those in other people, A, you're going to struggle mightily with having empathy for other people, and B, you're not going to know what it is that you need to be looking at in a therapeutic process and a personal spiritual regimen. If you think that you don't have things to work on, well, then I don't know, you got a whole other bag of some kind of narcissistic disorder that makes you psychologically incapable of properly self-reflecting. So I do think that it is a gift and an essential tool in order to foster personal growth. Second thing I wrote down is I believe in order to fully embrace and love yourself, it could be reasonably argued that you first have to spend time getting to know yourself, warts and all. So I don't think that you can, in other words, yeah, if the idea of being engaged in some kind of personal growth process, whether that's therapy, whether that's what you're working on in, with exercise, you're doing some kind of psychedelic treatment, you're in some kind of spiritual practice of meditation or whatever it is, if the idea behind that is to cultivate a strong, loving, accepting relationship with yourself, an ability to accept yourself as you are and as you show up in the world, and to really truly deeply love yourself in an honest, realistic way, I think you need to know yourself first, because I think it could be argued that narcissists who don't have the capability of true honest self-reflection love themselves in a certain way. They think very highly of themselves, think of themselves as having very few flaws or character defects, very few things to work on. But I don't know. It's like, think about externalizing that to another person. If you are holding a romantic partner up on a pedestal and you are sort of creating this caricature of a near perfect person, and that's who you've fallen in love with, but you don't actually fully know that person, you haven't actually taken the time to really invest in truly getting to know the entire person, the fully three-dimensional person, then it could be argued that you're not actually in love with that person. You're in love with an idealized caricature of that person. You're in love with an idea in your head of who that person could potentially be. And I think the same thing could be said about yourself. If you don't actually have the ability to self-reflect and truly know yourself, then you're never going to actually be able to fully love and accept yourself, because you don't actually know who it is you're trying to love and accept. I think that's enough on that. The next one is, and we're still in the pros list. These are still the good things. Self-reflection doesn't have to just be negative. I think sometimes when we talk about self-reflection, we sort of innately or intuitively believe that we're talking about being aware of one's shortcomings, of one's defects. And I think something that maybe keeps people from looking into mirrors, from being able to see themselves in others, and being able to be self-reflective, is that, like, it feels really negative. It feels, maybe you've got issues with dysmorphia and negative self-talk, and anytime you're engaged in a process of trying to hold yourself accountable, you feel overwhelmed by the voice in your head that is just saying what an awful person you are. Yeah, that person might have done this, this, and this, but remember when you said this? So you're no better than that person. You're a piece of shit. In fact, it's ridiculous that you would ever think that you have the right to judge anyone else, because no one in the world is worse than you. And I think that we are afraid of getting stuck in that negative self-talk goo when we're trying to engage in an honest process of self-reflection. But in the pros list, I would say, honest, true, effective, meaningful self-reflection does not have to be simply negative. In fact, it should not be simply negative. If it's going to be effective, if it's going to be useful, it should also include an honest appraisal and understanding of the qualities that you bring to the world that are undoubtedly positive. You should have an awareness of how you benefit the people around you, of what you bring to your relationships that is positive, that is worthwhile. And you should be able to acknowledge those things and celebrate those things in yourself. If you are disproportionately spending time hyperfixating on your negative qualities during your self-reflective process, you're doing yourself a disservice. Part of being able to be honestly self-reflective, to truly know oneself in a fully honest way, is also knowing what it is that you're good at. And you are good at things. Everyone is good at things. Everyone does things well. And you have things that people really value you for. You bring things to the world that are valuable. And it's important, if you're really going to know yourself and accept yourself, you need to know those things as well and make that a part of your self-reflection. Here's a pro. When someone confronts you with your character defects, when someone confronts you and says, hey, you do this thing and it kind of bothers me, it kind of hurts my feelings, it makes me think that you don't respect me. If you are capable of self-reflection, if you are a person who is trying to cultivate a healthy practice of being self-reflective and self-aware, you are going to be less likely in that scenario to blow that person off and be dismissive of that person's feelings. And you're going to be more likely to be solution-oriented and to find a path forward from that scenario, to be able to go, no, I can see that. That's valid. That thing that you're bringing to me is valid. I do that. And you're not the first person who's brought that to my attention. Other people in my life have brought that up, that sometimes I can be a little loose with my schedule, or sometimes, I can sort of wait for my friends to make plans, and I can take it for granted that other people will initiate things, and I need to take responsibility to initiate things more. You will be more likely to be able to cultivate a solution with that person if you are actively involved in a healthy process of self-reflection and a healthy amount of mirror gazing. Couple more pros here. If you maintain a vantage point that is acutely aware that you are wrong about things frequently, then you will be able to shift and adapt your beliefs and opinions and grow intellectually and spiritually as a result. So if the whole idea here is growth, if the goal is growth, if the goal is to become a better version of yourself, a more fully self-actualized and fully realized version of yourself, if that's the goal, is constant improvement, constant growth, constantly becoming more aware, more enlightened, more awake, you're not going to be able to do that if you're not aware of what it is that you have to work on. But if you are, healthily self-aware and healthily self-reflective, then when you encounter evidence that, changes a certain held belief or held opinion you have, you will be more likely to be able to shift and to be able to adapt and to be able to move. People who struggle with shifting away from long held beliefs and opinions and sort of ideological structures are, for lack of a better word, stuck. You are stuck somewhere. You are incapable of forward movement. You are incapable of growth. You are stuck in that space. And that's likely because of an inability to properly and healthily self-reflect. You are not capable of receiving the idea, the concept of correction or, new information. And I think having a healthy process of self-reflection makes you more open to that and therefore more capable of adjusting and shifting and growing. And my last pro that I wrote down is that ultimately, I just believe that the ability to self-reflect will make you overall in the world a better friend, a better sibling, child, parent, partner, coworker, etc. It will allow you to be of service to the community around you. It's just you're going to be more likely to be able to be of use if you are capable of understanding yourself in that way. And that's a massive pro. So there's probably more. There's probably more things that we could put on that pros list. We could probably do a whole episode on just the good things. We could probably do a whole series on it. But I think that what's clear is that it's definitely a good thing. Now, in this kind of conversation, this idea of like using other people as a mirror to sort of see where I need to hold myself accountable more, that's what got me thinking about this idea of like, is there ever a time to step away from the mirror? And that's what got me thinking about the idea of there's maybe got to be another side to this of when can it become a problem? So here are the cons, the other side of the coin. I think I sometimes keep people around who have magnified versions of my defects. And I talked about that earlier, that like sometimes you've got people who are definitely acting as a mirror and they're reflecting back the same problems that you have, but sometimes those issues are magnified. And I think that sometimes the reason why I want to continue staring into that mirror is because I don't want to turn away. I don't want to turn away from the truth that is being reflected back at me. It feels irresponsible to do that, to be like, I don't like the way that feels. I don't like essentially when that's happening, when I'm looking into a mirror of my defects, but magnified, it's like I'm looking at a version of myself that is run riot, that is unregulated, that is a version of myself that is not self-correcting, that is not taking inventory and trying to stay accountable and trying to stay on top of things. And it feels really scary and profoundly uncomfortable. But I also feel like, you know, part of growth and part of being involved in a process of growth is to be able to put oneself into discomfort. So it's like, I don't want to turn around from that. That's the first reason. And B, I think there's a part of me that selfishly wants to believe that if my similar defects were to become out of control in a similar way, were to become magnified in that way, that someone would still be willing to accept me through that. So me not turning away from people who have my same defects but magnified is sort of me energetically putting out this like hope that, hey, when I'm not on my A game and when I'm really, really struggling, I hope that someone will offer me the same grace, will be able to acknowledge my fallible, imperfect humanity and offer me that thing. And I know that we're in the cons list now, and it sounds like these things are still sort of like pro adjacent. I think that where this becomes a problem potentially is it can become dangerous and counterproductive to my personal well-being and growth. Again, going back to like situations of abuse and stuff, and abuse doesn't just exist in romantic relationships. It can exist in work partnerships. It can exist in friendship. And at what point, if you're trying to sort of like assert to the universe that like, I'm aware that this person is struggling with things that I also struggle with. Maybe they're struggling with it in a magnified way, but I also want to like really put out there that you can still be loved and still accepted, even if you're struggling to grow. Am I sort of putting myself on such a high road position that I'm actually doing a disservice to myself and becoming and exposing myself to behavior that is detrimental or dangerous to me? Is there I think that the argument could very easily be made that like, yeah, that does happen. People do stick around. There's this sort of idea of like, you definitely see it in romantic partnerships where it's like, I know this person that I'm with is deeply troubled and has real serious problems. I can see that. It's been made clear time and time and time again. But I want to believe that I can love them through this, when I said that I was going to stay by their side through thick and thin, through good and bad, this is what I was talking about, that I wasn't just going to love them if they were on the up and up, but I was going to love them even when they're struggling. And people will be in those situations and spend years being actively harmed and in active danger and being psychologically kind of chipped away at. And some people wind up getting killed in those situations, wind up losing their lives to those situations. And even if they can eventually make it out after years and years and years, they've incurred years and years and years of psychological damage and trauma that maybe wasn't necessary, that wasn't actually ever very beneficial. I think there is a tipping point where something becomes more detrimental than it is beneficial. And sometimes if you hang on past that point, you can sink years and years and years of your life into, trying to love someone through their magnified defects, but you're just sort of taking the brunt of what's happening because that person's not self-reflecting. That person's not taking their own inventory. That person's not working on anything. So none of this is really getting into them and working on them. It's just draining you. It's just working on you. It's just sapping you of your energy and your, kind of self-respect. And And that's sort of a result of not being willing to step away from that mirror and that self-reflective situation. Um, here's another thing about self-reflectiveness, and I think all work like this in general that's on the cons list is it can stray into the realm of self-centeredness and self-absorption lightning quick. The barrier between being very self-aware and uh hyper aware of your own defects and your own drawbacks and the things that you need to work on, and just being completely consumed with yourself in a maybe not a narcissistic positive way, but a negative way, and becoming self-absorbed in that way is paper thin. And it's really, really easy to stray into that realm where, like, yes, you're capable of looking into the mirror. Yes, you're capable of being honest about the assessment of what it is that you're seeing and taking inventory about what it is that you're seeing. But self-reflection is not all there is to being a human being uh, in the world. You also have to interact with other human beings. The purpose of trying to have a healthy amount of self-reflection is so that you can be of service to other people. And if all of your energy, all of your time is devoted to just looking inward and just hyper fixating on that mirror, pretty soon other people just start to dissolve. And maybe you're not Donald Trump, where all you're seeing is how amazing you are, and you're just going like, wow, look how amazing my hair is, and I'm in incredible shape, and I'm the best golfer in the world. And it's just all these like delusional things that aren't true, that you just think you're the most amazing person ever. But you're looking at yourself and just going like, Jesus Christ, you suck. Like, why can you not get it together? Why every time that you put an outfit on, does it look worse than it does on other people? How come you always have to be the loudest or the most talkative person in every social situation? Why can't you just grow? Why can't you do better? You sort of get lost in the sauce of your own self-reflection. You get lost in the sauce of how critical you're being of yourself, that you become self-absorbed in a whole other way. And you're still not capable of showing up for the people in your community in a meaningful way. You're not capable of being of service, of being of use, because you're too fixated on trying to hold yourself accountable. It's important to hold yourself accountable, but balance is also important. The opposite side of what I said in the first list, in the pros list, I said it shouldn't all be negative. You should also be self-reflective about your positive qualities. Well, we're going to throw that one down in the cons list, because what happens very frequently when people are trying to be self-reflective, self-aware, is they are capable of seeing the things that they need to work on, but they're only capable of seeing those things, and they're not capable of seeing anything else. All they can see is the flaws. They can't really understand what anyone would possibly like about them, what value they could possibly bring to any situation. All they can see is the story about what a bad person they are, and all of the problems that they have, and all of the things that they need to fix. And it just becomes this sort of feedback loop of negative self-talk. And that can definitely be a dangerous wormhole to go down. It's like, yeah, you are capable of seeing the problems that you have, so you're not some sort of like narcissist with blindness when it comes to your own reflection, but all you're seeing is the negative stuff, and you have this weird, distorted picture of yourself that does not include any of the things that people really truly value about you. Yeah, okay. So that's my list. That's my list. Let's go over to the comments. Sativa Classic on TikTok says, narcissists only take. I was the only one to work on myself. And I think that that is true about, being in a relationship with a narcissist when you are a self-reflective person. And that is what can be harmful when you're trying to you're trying to be the good guy. And like in that scenario I mentioned earlier, where like you have a relationship with a person, whether it's a friendship or a working relationship or a romantic relationship, where the two of you keep butting heads, you keep having problems, and you can see aspects of yourself in the behaviors that they're engaging in. They're doing things that really get under your skin and bother you, and you can see how they're acting as a mirror for you. You can be like, you know what? I think the reason that bothers me is because I do that too. So you, instead of holding it against them and just stewing and keeping that resentment, you get to work on yourself and you apologize for your part in things. You tell them, you know what, I did this, 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 and this, and that's not okay. And that's on me. And I need to work on that. And you get to work. The problem is, if you are engaged with a person who is not capable of doing that, who is a narcissist, they are never going to match the effort you're putting in to improving and self-betterment. And it is only going to, over time, wear on you and be detrimental to the work that you're trying to do. So I definitely agree with what that person is saying there. Lila says, I think in self-awareness, it's important to separate your behaviors from your inherent value. That's fucking awesome. That's really, really good. I love that. Absolutely. That just because and that goes into that cons list of being like, it is a gift to be able to self-reflect. It is a gift to be able to recognize what it is you need to work on. You can't work on shit if you can't recognize it. But one of the pitfalls of it is if you start attaching your inherent value to your awareness of your many, many problems, because we all have this list of things that just keep biting us in the ass, this list of things that keep coming up that we need to keep working on. If you create a story, a narrative where like, I'm not a good person, I am inherently not a valuable person because look at this list of things that I need to work on that are true. These are true things. Several people throughout my life have brought these things up to me. I'm not just making it up. So many people have told me that these things are a problem in me, and I'm aware of these things. So it's not just me being like, just too mean to myself. If you can, it's really easy to create a story that says, therefore, all of these things equal me not being a very valuable or good person fundamentally. And that's sort of that aspect of the thing in the first list about being like, you need to fully know yourself to truly love yourself. And you need to be just as self-aware of your positive aspects as you are of your negative aspects. So you don't get stuck telling yourself a story about how you don't have inherent value because you have these flaws. Everybody has problems. The fact that you're even capable of seeing them makes you pretty fucking awesome. And also, these flaws do not detract from your inherent value, from the fact that like you exist, you're here, that is valuable, that means something, that is cool. Donnie McNeil says, you just made me realize my whole life and I'm so grateful. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. I don't know if you're responding to that commenter or to what we're talking about on the show right now. Whatever it is, I like it. I'm vibing with it. I'm here for it. I think it's like you just made me realize my whole life. I did say this. I made a video recently and I really like this idea. It was in response to someone because I was talking about relativity of size. It was a video about nuclear weapons, and I had just watched Oppenheimer, and he's talking about how most of the universe is empty space, and just like most of your body is empty space, and there's empty space between these particles that are being held together by invisible forces. And when you pull out far enough, they look like solid matter, but it's actually an illusion. It's mostly just empty space. And I was talking about the relativity of size, that like when you pull out to the scale, if you were the size of the Milky Way galaxy, you wouldn't be able to perceive the distance between Earth and Jupiter. It would all just look like one thing. It would look like solid matter. And somebody in the comments of that video was like, man, every time somebody talks about the impossible vastness of the universe, it makes me feel so insignificant and makes me feel so unimportant. And my response to that was, I made a response video where I was like, the lesson to be learned when thinking about relativity of size in the universe is not, I'm so small, I'm so insignificant. That's not the lesson. The lesson is, there's no such thing as small. There's no such thing as insignificant. Size is relative. Jupiter is either unimaginably small or unimaginably large, depending on what Jupiter is being looked at in relation to. So in relation to an atom, Jupiter is unimaginably, impossibly large. But in relation to the size of the Milky Way galaxy, just one galaxy, it's insanely small. And the reality, like, so the ultimate truth there is it's not big or small. It just exists somewhere on a never-ending, infinite sliding scale of relative size. Its size does not determine its significance. Human beings are taken down, like we die all the time because of the effects of microscopic bacteria. The size of those things, the fact that they are so small we cannot perceive them, they are imperceptibly small, does not change their ability to have a massive impact on us. It does not affect their significance. If Jupiter were to bloop out of existence today, it would have a massive ripple effect, uh, chain reaction across the entire universe. It would affect the gravitational pull of our solar system, and then that would reverberate through our entire galaxy. This teeny tiny celestial body would have a massive effect. Its existence is significant in and of itself, inherently. Going back to this previous comment about your inherent value, inherently there is value in existence. The universe is a different place because you are here. It functions differently because of your existence. Fundamentally, you have fundamental, inextricable value attached to your very existence. So I hope that's similar to what you're saying right there, that you're realizing your whole life matters, because it does. The fact that you are small in relation to some things and big in relation to other things is kind of immaterial and irrelevant. It is the fact that you are here experiencing this that is the thing that matters. Donnie says, as a follow-up, I'm just happy that you do this. I don't want this to go away, and I get your universe talk. Thank you. Glad you get it. I get it. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't want this to go away. Hank Green said something the other day that I really liked, because it was like in response to, Hank Green does Stitch videos where like somebody's got a question about science, and then Hank Green's like, I'll tell you what that is, because that's what Hank Green does. And he's this generation's Bill Nye the Science Guy. Even though Bill Nye's still out there doing it, Hank Green is like he's the guy now. And somebody was talking about like the oldest known living species, and it was like a tree or something like that. And Hank Green just popped in. He was like, well, technically, if you want to get really pedantic about it, there is only one species. There is only one living organism, and it is billions of years old, and it's all of us. Like, we are all branches of the exact same life tree, and we are all just extending out, like the dissemination of the roots of this tree attached to all of us, and we are all just one thing. So we sometimes get stuck in the oneness of this experience of being born and dying, that we have this separateness, but the reality is it's all one thing going back and back and back. I read this post earlier today where someone was like, you know how you inherit traits from your parents, like the way that they laugh, or a style of humor that they have, or like even just weird idiosyncratic things like grunts or itching your body in places. You sort of mimic what your parents did when you were growing up. The person said, I wonder how far back that goes, because if I'm just mimicking my parents, maybe they were mimicking their parents, but their parents were mimicking their parents. So did my dad have certain vocal tics or noises that he would make that were actually originated by one of our ancestors like 200 or 300 years ago? And now I'm doing it because I think I'm imitating my dad, but really I'm imitating this guy who lived like 300 years ago, who just is further back in the chain. And I was like, I love that, because we're so limited by the perception of this sort of waking conscious experience, but we are literally just constructed physically of material that has always been here, and it just keeps sort of getting recycled and reformed and re-squished into a new thing. I relate though to the feeling of like, I don't want it to go away. Maybe you're not talking as existentially as death. Maybe you're just talking about TikTok and being like, I don't want it to go away. If that's your thing, follow me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is dope. It's popping off. My YouTube exclusive content is lit, and you should absolutely subscribe to my YouTube because, yeah, TikTok's probably going to get banned and it probably will go away. But YouTube's still here for now. So, subscribe to my YouTube. Let's see here. Dracosophos. Oh, dude, Dracosophos is here. This is my friend, Chris, who just popped in. Oh my God. I need to get Chris back on the podcast because Chris has some crazy shit he can talk about. And Chris just said, that's called the Tao of the Ancestor. I discussed that thing in my latest set of essays I mentioned to you. We were texting the other day. There's actually a lot there. Every day is 4 other days in time. Love that. Love that. Love that. We're going to have to talk about that. I'm going to have to get Chris or Dracosophos on here to talk about the Tao of the Ancestor and to talk about the journeys that he's been having with DMT and psychedelics. He's been doing some wild journeying. That's really, really interesting. I also like that every day is 4 other days. I saw a TikTok the other day that I've been really tripping out on that I love. That was like, what if ghosts aren't dead people that are haunting your space, but just alive people who lived in your space in like 1952, and they're just going through their day in 1952 in the same room that you're in, and every once in a while our linear perception of time just allows us to be like, oh, we bumped into each other on accident. We're able for a second to like see through the sort of like time dimension that prevents us from always looking at each other. And I think you could link that to what he's saying there of every day is 4 other days in time. It's minimum 4 other days in time, maybe, but I liked that idea that it's like, it's not a dead person. It could either be a person from the past or a person from the future. That's a whole thing, dude. Einstein was able to prove that the future is a physical place you can visit. I think the reason why we conceive of time travel as being impossible is that like we believe, because of the way that we perceive existence, that the only place that is real is the present. The only thing that you can really truly inhabit that is actually a physical space that you can be in is now. And that being the case, that means that like 20 years from now is not a physical place right now. It's only a place in 20 years. And 20 years ago is not an actual physical place that you can go visit. It no longer exists. Well, theory of relativity sort of throws that out the window, because if you can travel fast enough to shoot yourself into the future, if I can get into a spacecraft and go faster than light, for a month and then come back and it's several years later, and in the span of a month, I can traverse time and arrive in the future, then that means that the future is a physical place that exists right now. It is out there existing. I am just not capable of perceiving it. And if the future exists, it stands to reason that it goes in both directions, and you can go either way, but we can only see it one way. Boy, we are we're a ways off of talking about the main topic now. But that's all right. I think it's fun that we're getting real wild. Oddly Specific with Audra says, I found you on TikTok, but see you way more on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. I love that. I love it. You're in the minority, I'll tell you, Audra. You are in the minority of people. Most people see me most frequently on Instagram and TikTok. I wish it weren't so. I work the hardest these days on my YouTube videos. They are like the thing that I'm the most proud of. They usually take like 2 to 3 weeks a piece to make, and I'm very proud of them when they come out. And it's a big bummer when they only get like 2,000 views. I try not to be bummed out because I'm like, hey, 2,000 people watching the thing I made. That's cool. It's just that I fart around and make some thing that takes me like an hour to make on TikTok, and it gets 150,000, 200,000 views easy on a random Tuesday. And I really do feel like my A game, my best work right now exists on YouTube. So again, TikTokers, YouTube's the joint. That's the place. Dracosophos says again, that's exactly how I get into things. I talk about ghosts in a very similar manner. Time is a crooked bow. Other times are accessible. Totally. Dude, like, okay, we can relate this to the self-reflective topic. knowing oneself, loving oneself, accepting oneself. A big thing that a lot of people do in different therapeutic practices is like younger self healing work, trying to tap into your younger self and visit your younger self and talk to your younger self. And it's very effective. It can be a very effective modality of like healing and working through trauma, to kind of psychedelically try to create an energy container where you can visit past versions of yourself and offer them acceptance, forgiveness, love, and comfort. And there's even, ideas out there that say, when you were that person back then, when you were the person 10 years ago that was freaking out or suicidally depressed, and you felt that weird presence that showed up and like offered you love that felt so alien and foreign, you had this voice in your head that was saying, you're a piece of shit, you need to die, the world would be better off without you. And then something came in and said, I know things are really hard right now. Give it a few days. I still love you and I want you to still be here, and offered you some kind of warmth. And it felt really weird because you were like, that's not me. That's not like, I don't love myself right now. So I don't know what's offering me this like warmth that's allowing me to get through the next few days, or even just this like brief comfort. There's a lot of thinkers right now in the therapeutic space, psychedelic space, that feel like what that actually is a visitation from a future self. So your future self is somewhere working on past self-healing, younger self-healing, and you are literally punching through the time dimension to put your arm around yourself as a younger version of yourself and say, it's okay. It's okay. Stay the course. You're doing all right. You're going to make it. Trust me. I'm you in 20 years. I know you're going to be all right. Just hang in there. And the reason why I think it's beneficial therapeutically is like, not only are you helping yourself out to exist in the future, but it's like this, like you're sending this like shockwave of love through all of the past versions of yourself that have ever felt lost and not loved and all this stuff. It's sort of like, I just rewatched the movie Arrival, and such a good movie. I love that movie so much. And I remember seeing Arrival for the first time in theaters and being like, this is maybe the best time travel movie I've ever seen, because so many of the questions that typically exist in time travel movies, so many of the plot holes and problems seemed to be taken care of by this simple concept of a species that cognitively functions in both directions, that their cognition is based on being able to think forwards and backwards and exist forwards and backwards simultaneously. They just literally exist in a different time dimension than we do. And I love the concept that, this is a spoiler alert if you've never seen this movie, big spoiler, but the idea of a species visiting us and saying, we need to be here because you help us in the future. In 3,000 years, humanity helps us. And the reason why humanity is able to help us in 3,000 years is because we come and do this. So it's this weird thing of like a species reaching through time to be like, we're going to help you out because you're going to help us out. And that's sort of what past self-healing is like, going like, yeah, I know that when I was you, older me punched through and helped. So I need to do that. I sort of need to close the loop. Anyway, watch Arrival. If you haven't seen Arrival, really, really good. David and Brandon both say, David Allred, who's been on the podcast, says, your YouTube game is so strong. Thank you very much, cousin. He's my cousin. Brandon Cook says, I love your YouTube stuff, Austin. That's right, dude. I'm telling you, it's fire if you're over here. It's really, really popping off. Let's see here. What's going on right now? TikTok's saying it's going to end my live because they've detected inactivity. I don't know what I'm here talking to it. Whatever. Donnie Mitchell says, you have to understand the fact that the earth is constantly moving. You have to have space. I wonder if you said you have to have space travel. I wonder if you meant you have to have space to travel. Yeah, we are definitely in just like a big, organic spaceship, and we are all our organic machines, supercomputers and whatnot. I also, in that regard, while talking about self-reflection, self-acceptance, self-love, um, and that idea of the earth is constantly moving, that's a big part of that too, I think. One of my favorite books when times are getting hard is the book When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist monk and teacher. And she has a chapter in that book called Abandon Hope or Abandoning Hope. It's one of my favorite chapters in the book. And it's sort of, I love the chapter because the idea of abandoning hope sounds very pessimistic. But what she's saying is you need to abandon hope that there is some future version of you that has the job, the relationship, the thing that will put you on solid ground, that will make you feel secure and stable. What you need to realize is that the ground beneath your feet has always been moving. You have always been on a shifting tide, and you need to learn to just accept and like surf and and ride the ride, go up and down, abandon hope that security and stability and safety are things that you are ever going to truly have. If you can accept the fact that the nature of your life is constant transience, constant movement, constant up and down, constant, growth and change, then you can find a higher form of self-acceptance and the acceptance of the journey you're on, and hopefully have a higher likelihood of being able to obtain some form of peace. All right. Adnan said, not what I wanted to hear. I know it sounds, it sounds pessimistic. It sounds like hopeless, like, it's never going to get better. That's what it sounds like. Through a certain lens, it sounds like saying things are never going to get better. And I think that you have to look at it the opposite way, which is things have always been okay. You've always been okay. Even when the worst things have happened, you've managed. You've survived every worst day of your life so far. You've always been riding the ride, for better or worse, and you've always been doing actually a pretty kick-ass job at it. So understanding that like you are actually good at surfing, you actually already know how to do this, and accepting that will make it not hurt so much and not be so existentially vexing. It's sort of the tonal difference of Nothing Matters and Nothing Matters in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie starts off with this very kind of hopeless, pessimistic tone of like, why would I try? Why would I stick around in the world? Nothing matters. And it ends with the exact same line being flipped in a way where it's like, nothing is as instrumental or as massive as you think it is. All of these things that you've put so much stock into, this idea of like, my life will be meaningless if I never get the right relationship, if I never get the right job, if I never make a certain amount of money, if I never have a certain house, my life will, if I don't fix this, and this issue in the world, then I've done nothing in my life. All of that stuff, if you can set that aside and say, that's not actually the point. That's not actually the thing that gives my existence inherent value and inherent worth. You can have that sort of lens of going like, oh, none of that stuff actually really matters. What matters is that I figure out how to just be here and just be on the ride. So I totally get it. I get how, I mean, I remember when I first read that chapter in her book, I was like, ooh, that's a harsh title for the chapter, Abandoning Hope. And she just kept saying it over and over again. She's like, you need to abandon hope. And I was like, that's a weird way to phrase that. But what she was saying is like, stop thinking that there is something out there that's going to come and save you, and understand that you've always actually been okay. Probably Lost drops in on TikTok and says, hey, Austin, I just wanted to drop by and say thanks for everything you do. Really, really appreciate that. And you just sent a gift. Really appreciate that too. That's really nice. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. John Arnold says, is this going to be on the test? I hope not. I hope there isn't a test. What's the name of the book and the author? Again, that name of the book and the author is When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, Pemachudron. Dracosophos says, all is well is what the angels sang to me in my deepest existential pit. They said, these are useless cares. All is already well, always. Totally. Yeah, I love that. I love that. That it's just like, don't worry. Trust me, you're going to be okay. I literally, because I feel like I've personally had experiences of feeling hopeless, feeling like I cannot see a way out of a situation where I really genuinely don't want to be alive anymore. And then having something, some sort of thing come to me and be like, you're going to be okay. Don't worry. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other and then finding a way out. And I've had that experience over and over again. I feel more and more confident when I'm feeling despondent and desperate these days to know, like, I can just say to myself in the present moment, you'll be okay. You are okay. All is well. Always is well. It's always well. Oddly specific with Audra says, your arrival spill made me think multiverse. Like person 1 didn't get punched through with love, but the 12th iteration has levels of reverse encouragement, like everything everywhere all at once. Yeah, definitely. You know, that there are different versions of you that like didn't listen to the thing that tried, you know, because that's a thing in Arrival too, is it's like some of the people on Earth come dangerously close to not getting the message. The visitation from the heptapods, they are trying to deliver a message, and the message that the gift that they're bringing is the gift of their language, because their language changes the way that your brain works. It allows your brain to start thinking forwards and backwards at the same time, which allows humanity to step into the next stage of their cognitive evolution. And that's the gift. But because our brains aren't there yet, we almost don't hear it. We don't accept the gift that they're trying to bring us, and we come dangerously close to killing them and just staying stuck in our own kind of lost state. And that's totally possible too, that there are iterations in some kind of multiverse of possibilities that are not capable of hearing the message of like, don't worry, keep moving forward. There's a future version of you that's out here that you can become if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Wow, I really like the way that this conversation evolved and developed. We started off by talking about, you know, just kind of being involved in a process of self-reflection and looking into mirrors and being self-aware and taking inventory and accountability. And we wound up getting all the way out into the ooey gooey ether of what is time and what is existence and the inherent value of existence, and lots of fun stuff. I really like all that stuff. Thank you, everybody, for your very inspiring contributions to the conversation in the chat. Let's call it there, because I got other work I got to do. I am editing my next YouTube exclusive content video, which is about Alex Garland's film Civil War, which I quite liked. I quite like Alex Garland. I know that some people don't. I know that he's a divisive filmmaker. I know that a lot of people don't like this current film. And I know that people didn't like his last film. I didn't really like Men, but I have a lot of respect for Alex Garland as a writer and a filmmaker. Like, he's got a pretty good track record, in my opinion. It's mostly pretty good stuff. And I do like what he did with this latest movie, so much so that I wrote a whole video essay about it. And it's sort of similar to what we talked about today. It's about staring into the abyss and sort of looking at things that are important to look at, and not turning away from them because they're uncomfortable. And I'm going to get busy editing that. But thank you, everybody, for participating in this. Check out that next video essay when it comes out. Check me out on YouTube. Check out my past video essays. I think they're really good. Follow me over there because TikTok's going away. You know, People Pleaser is written, edited, hosted, and produced by me, Austin Archer, with original theme music also by me. You can find more of my music by going to austin-archer.com or austinarchermusic.bandcamp.com. You can find my limited edition double vinyl, Beautiful Things, the deluxe edition, over at my Bandcamp, austinarchermusic.bandcamp.com. If you're on YouTube and you're like, there was no music in this, what are you talking about? It's because the music is only on the audio version of the podcast. I live stream this to YouTube, so I don't know how to add music after the fact, but there's music. It's part of the podcast that I write and put into the podcast. I also put original music into my YouTube videos, my video essays. So yeah, I make music is the thing, and that's okay. Whatever. The end of the show. Patreon.com/Austin Archer. Love my patrons. Shout out everybody. Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you next time, and love you so much. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye bye.